Welcome in to Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. Thursday edition of Outkick the Show. We are here and now just a few hours away from the official launch of the NFL Draft. Lots to get to today, including what I would consider to be pretty major news, given all of the news that pops about the draft picks from the get-go. We have absolutely no idea up until a few moments ago what was going to happen, or a few hours ago. And now it looks like, and I can't believe it's going to happen, but it looks like the Cleveland Browns are going to take Baker Mayfield number 1 overall, which is going to be pretty wild. Pretty wild to see Baker Mayfield go number 1 overall, given that he hadn't really been mentioned for a while as the likely number 1 overall pick. So we got to get to that. But the most recent offshores, according to my guys at sportsbookreview.com, the most recent offshores now have Baker Mayfield minus 350 to be the number 1 overall pick by the Cleveland Browns. If you want to get the best number you possibly can on all of the NFL draft props, you need to go to sportsbookreview.com and make sure that you check as many of those sites as you possibly can. You know, you could have gotten Baker Mayfield at 33-1 as recently as a couple of months ago to be the overall number 1 pick. Now, usually you can't get down much money, but usually you can get down $100 or so. That would mean you could have wagered $100 and won 3,300. So I hope some of you actually managed to pull that off. And if you did, congratulations for checking out sportsbookreview.com and finding the best number you could possibly find for that NFL prop bet, or your NHL playoffs, or your NBA playoffs. So much to get to in our roll through the topics here. Baker Mayfield now minus 350 to go number 1 overall. If that happens, what are the Giants going to do? What are the Jets going to do? Does Buffalo trade up? Where do the quarterbacks fall? We're going to talk NFL draft. Josh Allen has racist tweets that go out, and everybody has lost their mind about that. We got LeBron getting away with a goaltend before he hit a big shot to win Game 5 against the Pacers. We've got Kanye and Trump, the bromance, unlike any bromance I have ever seen before, why this could be a pretty big deal, and Bill Cosby's been found guilty of all 3 counts on sexual assault. So much to get to. But before we get any further, I want to tell you, go to thehomeloanexpert.com. My guy Ryan Kelly will take care of you. Thehomeloanexpert.com. Whether you need to buy a new home, whether you need to refi, whether you want to get pre-qualified, make sure that you make the smart financial decision and go to thehomeloanexpert.com right now, and you will be glad that you did make that decision. Also, if you get in a mortgage really quickly and you tell them that Clay Travis and Outkick sent you, you will get a free weekend at our Las Vegas event, which I am planning to start taking reservations for next week, which is going to be pretty awesome. All right, let's go through a bunch of these different storylines. Baker Mayfield. Guys, this is legitimate, I think, blockbuster news, given how much attention the NFL draft gets. Up until last night, I don't really think anybody believed that Baker Mayfield was going to be the overall number 1 pick in this draft, and you could have even gotten him at 10-1, 16-1 in the last week. Baker Mayfield is a lot of fun to watch on the football field. My issues with Baker Mayfield are as follows. 1, I just don't know that he can channel his emotion in the best possible way. And the question I've got for you guys is this. Who's the most emotional, successful quarterback on the field in the NFL? Maybe Cam Newton, maybe Aaron Rodgers. Who would you point to and say, Baker Mayfield reminds me of this guy? Now, from a pure physical perspective, you might point to Drew Brees. You might point to Russell Wilson. Those guys don't really have his emotional carry. Like, I always say this. This is a good life lesson in general. Whatever you are, money makes you more of it. Okay? I mean, I think that's a really good lesson no matter what you want to contemplate. If you are Baker Mayfield and you have gotten arrested in Fayetteville, Arkansas for underage drinking and then gotten tackled by that Fayetteville cop, who everybody, by the way, in the AFC North should try to bring into their practice camp because he tackled Baker Mayfield better than anybody did in the Big 12 or the SEC. all last year. If you are going to, if you're going to make that happen already, and if you are out there and you have got issues with emotionally controlling yourself on the field, whether it's spiking the flag into midfield, whether it's grabbing your dick on the sideline, I don't particularly care about those things. But you can't really do that once you get to the NFL. There is nobody, I don't think, who has done the equivalent of those things in college and then gone into the NFL and been a stud. Now, maybe Baker Mayfield is going to become more restrained at the quarterback position, but I think the way he plays that's his edge. And I think what likely happens is once he gets that money, he's going to be more enabled and bold in the way that he carries himself than he was before he got that money. And if you're already a little bit cocky, and if you're already a little bit on the edge with the way that you play, my concern is if I were taking him number 1 overall, that he is then going to go over the edge at some point once he actually becomes the number 1 pick for the Cleveland Browns. I think it's hard to have a field general who is not, I'm trying to think, it's hard to have a field general who is incredibly emotional. And yes, Tom Brady is occasionally emotional, but I don't think that it's anything like the way Baker Mayfield has played. Now, maybe Baker Mayfield's going to be able to restrain himself. Maybe he's going to become more of a leader. I think that in general, when you make money, you become more of what you already are. Money doesn't change you. It just enables the full flourishment of your character to become vivid on the national stage. And if you think about this, we have seen so many guys who were right on the edge in college, and then once they got to the NFL or the NBA and they had big money, they took the next step. They took the next step and they created a lot of drama around themselves. And I worry a little bit about Baker Mayfield in that respect. That's what would make me nervous about taking him over number 1 overall. I also combine that with the fact that I think Josh Rosen is a better quarterback, and I think that Sam Darnold has the perfect temperament for a quarterback. I want my quarterback to be a stone-cold assassin like we saw Sam Darnold right after he threw all those touchdown passes at the end of the game against Penn State, and he got interviewed, and he looked like he had just finished a physics exam. Did you see the way Sam Darnold looked in that interview? That's when I said, my God, this guy's going to be an incredible quarterback at the next level, because success or failure, regardless of how it impacts him, it doesn't give any kind of external sense. And so I'm a little bit nervous about that for Baker Mayfield. Throw in the fact that he's not that big. And all of those things, I think, become a substantial issue in general. Now, there are issues with everybody. If you knew who was going to be a stud, then you wouldn't even worry about it, right? You wouldn't even blink. But picking quarterbacks is insanely difficult. Think about this for a sec. When you go back through everything that has ever happened, right? When you go back through everything that has happened with all these guys who are being recruited at a high level now, how are going to be drafted at a high level, none of them were big-time quarterbacks. Think about this. Think about this in a sec for me. Baker Mayfield, I believe, walked on at Texas Tech, right? He was a Lake Travis quarterback down in Austin, but it wasn't like he was a high-level quarterback, all right? Think about Josh Allen. Nobody would even give him a chance. He had to go to a JC in order to even get a scholarship to Wyoming. Lamar Jackson was pretty much overlooked from South Florida. Bobby Petrino swept in and signed him. Josh Rosen is really, and Sam Darnold was a 3-star, and the expectation was, who was the SC quarterback? I need my guy Colin Cowherd to step in and tell me. Who was the SC quarterback that everybody thought was going to be amazing? And then Darnold came in as the quarterback, and he took over. There was a guy who was already at SC, and he was the big-time playmaking quarterback that everybody thought was going to be the future, and then Sam Darnold beat him out. I think was it Ricky Towns? I can't even remember. I think it was Ricky Towns. But I believe I'm correct that Sam Darnold was like a 3-star guy. And then the only guy who was a big-time recruit coming out of high school going to college was Josh Rosen. The reason why I mention that is it's becoming just as difficult. It's becoming just as difficult to think about what a high school quarterback going to college is going to turn into as it is projecting even from college to the NFL. And that's why I've been arguing for a while. If I were the Browns and I wanted to take Baker Mayfield, I would legitimately think about taking another quarterback at 4. It would be shocking. A lot of people out there would say, oh my God, you can't do this. Let me make my case. I think you make this decision because the NFL, I think, needs to learn from college in this respect. College coaches are aware of how difficult it is to project the next guy up. And you look, I love Georgia. Georgia is a perfect example of this right now. Georgia signs 5-star Jacob Eason. He plays as a true freshman. Everybody says, man, Jacob Eason's going to be a top 10 pick. It's unbelievable. Jake Fromm comes in, steals the job from him, is better. Jacob Eason transfers to Washington. And then, as if it weren't bad enough, as if it wasn't crazy enough, the Georgia Bulldogs go out and sign the overall number 1 quarterback again. Every year, they have gotten a 5-star guy. They got Fields, this new guy, Justin Fields, who is unbelievable. Every year, they've gotten a new guy. And what do? They throw them into competition against each other, and the best guy wins. And as a result, the competition level is a lot better. And in college, you have a lot less hours to practice than you do in the NFL. It's counterintuitive, but if it is so difficult to figure out who the right quarterback is, if you're going to take Baker Mayfield 1, why not go take somebody else at 4? It could be, who knows who might be available out there. Could be Sam Darnold. You might be able to draft Baker Mayfield 1 and Sam Darnold 4. You might be able to go out and get one of the guys, Allen, or you might be able to get Rosen at 4. Get 2 guys, let them compete. You are the Cleveland Browns. You have swung and missed so often at the quarterback position. Even if you love your guy at 1, why not go get another guy at 4? Because the way it's breaking down right now, let's do NFL draft talk. The way it's breaking down right now, assuming Baker Mayfield, who's now minus 350 offshore, can check it out at sportsbookreview.com. Assuming Baker Mayfield is going 1. Going 2, it appears that the Giants, if you look at the offshores, most likely are going to take Saquon Barkley at 2. You figure that at 3, the Jets are now going to have their choice. Which LA quarterback do they want? Do they want Sam Darnold or do they want Josh Rosen? All right. And so they'll have that decision. And then at 4, you get to go again. So at 4, you could get Josh Allen. You could get Josh Rosen. You might be able to get Sam Darnold. Why wouldn't you do that? To me, this is a no-brainer. It's counterintuitive. And a lot of people out there who are, quote unquote, the old media, the old scouts would say, oh, you can't do this. To me, the quarterback position is so important. If you have to give up 2 first-round picks to get the right guy, why not do it? Look at what happened with the Washington Redskins. Everybody ripped them when they took RG3-2 and they took Kirk Cousins in the 4th round. And then Kirk Cousins ended up being the best quarterback of the Redskins have ever had. And so as a result, I think, why not go ahead and do that? Why not make the smart decision and go ahead and do it? I think it would be brilliant. I don't know why it wouldn't be the play that you think makes the most sense. And then you get 2 guys and you figure out which one works. And if it doesn't work out, you trade it. You go ahead and make the decision. You know what? I will trade them and you can get another quarterback later, 2nd round. You get that pick back. I don't think that whoever you're going to take in the 4 spot is going to make that much of a difference. Now, I would potentially feel a little bit different if the Giants went quarterback 2 and you could get Saquon Barkley and pair him with your brand new quarterback. That has a lot more appeal to me. But if you don't get Saquon Barkley, you don't get a difference maker there at running back, then I'm not sure exactly what the sense is there. So now let's move on to this discussion about Josh Allen. I want to know if you guys agree with me. 6 years ago, Josh Allen used the N-word that ends in A. All right? We are in such a ridiculous place when we talk about race in this country that racism has basically been boiled down to whether you use the N-word or not. And then whether or not you use the N-word that ends in A or you use the N-word that ends in ER. Regardless, Josh Allen was 16 years old when he did this. All right? My position on this is pretty straightforward, okay? We shouldn't have different rules of speech depending on who the person speaking is. Modern American society, we shouldn't have different words that are acceptable to use based on what your race is. I think that's absurd, okay? We understand, based on context, what words mean, all right? There's three perspectives on when it comes to language like this. Nobody should use it, all right? I think that's like, when you say nobody should use it, you make the word more powerful than it otherwise should be. If you've got kids and they learn a curse word, and you overreact when they're young when they use it, do you know what they do? They use it over and over again. Great story. When I was driving my oldest kid, I would drive him to daycare, and he would be in the car with me. And I am a cursor when I drive, all right? And whenever somebody was a bad driver in front of me, I would say, fucking damn it. I would say, fucking damn it. I don't know why, but I'd be driving along, and I'd be taking my 2-year-old to daycare, and when I would see a green, and it's funny, it would be, what's funny about this is, one day, my wife was working as a guidance counselor in school, and I would drive him to daycare every morning. I had to get him up, feed him a bottle, get him started for the day. All right? And so, when I would drive him, I would say that I wasn't thinking about it, like he'd be in the back, kind of just playing with himself, watching TV, like hanging out in the back of the car. I think it was like one of the holidays. One of the holidays my wife had off, maybe Christmas, and she was driving him in before Christmas, obviously. You get a couple of weeks off for school. And my wife was driving him into school, and she came back home later daycare. She came back home later that day, and she said, so, your son said fucking damn it this morning when we were stuck at a green light, but nobody was moving. And what was interesting was she said, what did you say? And he said, I said fucking damn it. If you've ever heard a 2-year-old curse, it's one of the funniest things imaginable because the kids are so cute. They are so incredibly cute when they're like 2 years old. And when they curse, it just looks so unbelievable, right? So cute to see a 2-year-old curse. And she said, what did you say? And he said, I said fucking damn it. She said, why did you say that? And he said, Daddy says fucking damn it when the light is green, but the cars are stopped. Brilliant kid. He had actually been paying so close of attention to me when I thought he wasn't paying attention at all, that he had noticed not just when I cursed, he had learned how to apply my curse words correctly. I wasn't cursing when I was at a red light. I was cursing when I was at a green light and somebody was trying to turn and the traffic got all backed up. So he applied the curse words perfectly while my wife was driving him to school at the age of 2. I say that for this reason. We just had this happen with my 3-year-old. He's got a really pronounced Southern accent. It's so cute. And he has heard his older brothers use the word hell. So he will say, what the hell? And it's gorgeously cute to see a 3-year-old say, what the hell? But when you tell a young kid that they are using an inappropriate word, do you know what they do? They say that word more frequently because you are telling them the power of your language by reacting to it. They don't know what the word means. They understand that it has power, right? That's what they understand. And so if you break it down in that respect, it's actually really pretty amazing to think about. When you tell someone not to use a word because it's too powerful to use, you are making that word more powerful. That's why sometimes people watch this show, they say, you curse every now and then. I say, yeah, I do. And they say, well, why do you curse? It makes me upset that you curse. And I say, because they're just words and I use them to emphasize things. And what I say is, there's a big difference. Let's use the F word, which I can say without creating a huge controversy. If I say fuck you, all right, everybody knows that those are effectively fighting words. If I say fuck you and I accompany it with my middle finger extended, that's even beyond the phrase just fuck you. But if I say to my wife, wanna fuck, question mark, that's a hopeful moment that leads to sexual congress, right? If I say that something is fucking awesome, you know that I love it. If I say that something is fucking despicable, you know that I hate it. You are all smart enough by using the context in which the word is used to determine whether or not it is being used in a positive or negative fashion. Therefore, the same thing is true of, for instance, Riley Cooper. When Riley Cooper got in trouble, he was screaming a racial slur at a black guy because he was mad at him. in a negative way. That was the context in which the word was being used. It was racist. When we saw Dante DiVincenzo or the Virginia Tech women's lacrosse team singing along to a rap song or quoting rap lyrics, they were doing that not in a way that was designed to be racist. And so we have so created this absurd situation. I want to know your opinions in general. If you tweet rap lyrics when you're 16 years old, should sports media cover that as a #1 story in America? Or is that patently absurd? Because I was not watching, but I heard this morning on Woke Center AM, after LeBron James had just drained that jumper, after Russell Westbrook had led his team back from a 25-point deficit, it's still early in the morning. I make a decision every morning what is going to be the lead story on my show, right? That's what I do. I have 3 hours on Sports Talk Radio. I'm on all 50 states, all over the nation. Satellite radio, millions of you will download it. And do you know what I led with? LeBron James, the goaltend, Russell Westbrook's comeback, and Game 7 in the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm starting off everybody's day with the games that took place. And then we led into what do we think is going to happen on the NFL draft. That, to me, is bar none easy, tons of sports stories to discuss. Do you know what ESPN led with every morning show they had today? They led with Josh Allen's tweets he sent when he was 15 or 16 years old. I just don't get it. I don't understand how that is a legitimate #1 story that you lead with, or how you're going to castigate a guy and say that those tweets mean he's racist. Look, Josh Allen also tweeted, "I love penis." All right? It was actually really funny. You see it. I think there were multiple O's in the love, right? I think when you look at that, it does not mean that he is in fact gay. I think it means a couple of things. One of his friends might have got his Twitter account, might have gotten his cell phone, and might have put it in there at the age of 15. We didn't have social media then. I can totally see when I was 15 years old, if we had had a Twitter account, I can totally see, and we'd all had phones, which we didn't have when I was a kid. I can 1,000,000,000% see one of my guy friends having gotten my phone and tweeted out to everybody else, "I love penis," from my account. 1,000,000,000% chance that that would have happened, right? If you are a teenage boy and you did not have a friend, or you weren't the friend who might get your buddy's phone and tweet out, "I love penis," then you probably are never going to be a fan of Outkick, all right? That is like grade #1 behavior of teenage kids, all right? And I think all the time now about what it would have been like to be a teenager and have all of these social media comments that you were putting out into the world when you're 14, when you're 15, when you're 16 years old, long before. Remember, we're not talking about Josh Allen being a stud athlete. I'm sure when he was 15, he had no idea that he would ever be a freaking #1 NFL draft pick or be in the running for that. And so I think context matters. Nobody's running around saying, "Oh, because Josh Allen tweeted that he loves penis, that makes him gay." Why would you say because Josh Allen is tweeting lyrics from rap songs, or tweeting out the N-word that ends with an A, which is actually a positive affirmation among young kids now? I've told this story before. I was out in Santa Monica a couple of years ago. And look, everybody thinks that their generation is the best generation. My generation was the last non-pussy generation in America, I think, although there's lots of people in my generation who are complete pussies too. But I was right on the edge of the millennials. I was born 8 months before the millennial generation officially began. All right. That meant that I grew up without social media. I grew up without the internet. Nobody had phones. We grew up, and then we aged into social media. I was out in Santa Monica recently at the Santa Monica Pier. It's a couple of years ago. Huge group of young teenage boys are skateboarding. You know what they're calling each other? The N-word with an A. Asian kids, white kids, black kids. Look like a United Colors of Benetton ad. They don't consider that to be a racial slur because they're smart enough to understand context clues, and they also understand on some level how absurd it is to be defining yourself by the same racial rules that defined your parents, and even beyond them, the baby boomers. All right? I have never heard, maybe I'm rare in this. Maybe I'm rare in this. I have never heard in my life, in a private conversation, in a public conversation, anywhere, I've never heard someone utter a racial slur legitimately meaning it as a racial slur. In my teenage to adult life, I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. Maybe I grew up in a sheltered community full of fairly equal treating people, but I have never heard it. And so this idea that there's racial slurs everywhere and that we have to ban words, I just fundamentally disagree with it. Furthermore, I think this idea that we cover the tweets of teenagers, I want to put it in this context with you. What do we do with juvenile offenders? What do we do with juvenile offenders? I went to a school named after Martin Luther King. I went to Martin Luther King Magnet High School in Nashville, Tennessee. School for smart kids, but it was a public school. All right? I am fascinated by this. When kids get in trouble and they are juveniles, all right? When kids get in trouble and they are juveniles, what do? We throw away their juvenile records and don't treat them seriously, right? So if a kid gets arrested when he's 15 or 16, assuming it doesn't make the news, eventually we toss away all of those arrests. There are probably a ton of guys who are going to get drafted this weekend who got arrested at 14, 15, 16, and 17 years old for doing really dumb things, right? And as a society, we have decided those kids are too young to be held accountable as adults for the crimes that they may have committed as juveniles. And so we throw away that record and they get to have adult lives without having their juvenile records hung over their head. How can you justify that decision as a society when it comes to criminal behavior, and yet as the same age kids, we're going to hold them to an adult standard for their tweets? Somebody justify that to me. If Josh Allen had gotten arrested for public intoxication or drunken driving at 16 years old, his arrest record would be sealed and nobody would ever know about it, right? That would not be public in any way. And talking about it would be unfair if you broke through the seal and got that. If you did that and you agree that that shouldn't exist, why would you go look at a 16-year-old's tweets, which have nothing to do with criminal culpability at all? They're just words in a tweet, and actually treat it as a legitimate story. I would just ask everybody, a lot of people in the media watch this show. I would ask them to make that distinction for me. If you agree that a 16-year-old's criminal history should not be fair game because of our juvenile justice system, how can you justify a 16-year-old's tweets being a legitimate story that you would choose to lead your shows with as ESPN did? I think it's fascinating. Now, all of this to say, if you're a young guy or young girl and you're watching this show, delete everything you ever put out. A lot of you are smart enough to be on Snapchat. That's why you like it. It only lasts 24 hours and then it's gone forever. But if you are a kid who got a Twitter account when you were young, delete every prior tweet that you have ever sent and scrub your account. And then come back and be brand new, fresh, and so clean so that you are ready to get hired. Don't leave any kind of cyber trail. And you will be in much better shape than you would be if you hadn't. Because there's a lot of dumb stuff that you probably have on your Twitter account from when you were 13 or 14. And by the way, all these agents that are going to get paid millions of dollars, how about employ somebody to be a cybersecurity expert? Get your clients' social media accounts, type in dirty words, and try to delete them so that this story never emerges, because you might end up causing your client a lot of damage. Now, there's rumors that the reason this story came out on the day of the draft is because either a team is actually trying to sabotage Josh Allen's status and hope that they fall to him, which is even more ridiculous and proves what a faux rage society we live in. People are using the way media covers stories to make sure that they can get an advantage from it. I think it's unbelievable. I think it's flat out amazing. LeBron James got away with a goaltend. A few more stories that I want to get to. Kanye and Trump. Kanye and Trump. This is a fascinating moment. I abhor identity politics. Why do I abhor identity politics? I abhor identity politics because at their very most basic level, they are racist. They are racist because they presume that based on what you look like or your gender or where you're from, that you should be voting a certain way. And I think it leads to a ridiculous result, which is fundamental unfairness and absurdity in the way that we have politics happen today. My hope is that what Kanye West can do is, because he's so popular, that he can give cover. That he can give cover to other free thinkers who are out there contemplating what he is and thinking to themselves, how crazy is it that the most rebellious thing an entertainer can do today, the single most rebellious thing that any entertainer can do today, is say he doesn't believe that Donald Trump is the worst human being on the planet. Think about how crazy that is. Think about how crazy that is, that that's where we are as a society, that the single most rebellious thing an entertainer can do is actually say, you know what? I don't think Donald Trump is awful. I don't think Republicans are awful. And also think about it. I did this when I did my talk in Nashville. The most rebellious song that somebody can come out to today, the Star Spangled Banner. You walk out to the Star Spangled Banner now, you are a straight up gangster. That's where you are. That's how crazy the world has become, that the most controversial song, if you talk about sports media, that I could come out to is the Star Spangled Banner. We've come a long way from everybody wanting to put rappers in jail. Now rappers can say whatever the hell they want, and the most controversial thing a rapper could do is come out to the Star Spangled Banner and put his hand over his heart and stand for the national anthem. Think about how crazy that is. The most controversial thing Kanye West could do on his tour this year, when he goes back out to perform, is come out to the national anthem and put his hand over his heart. That's amazing to me that America is so backwards these days that literally the most attention that Kanye West could get is to come out on the stage to the Star Spangled Banner and put his hand on his heart and stand there for the playing of the national anthem. It's fucking amazing. Sometimes I don't even understand. We live in an upside down world. I can't wait till my book comes out and you can read everything all in one place. Finally, Bill Cosby. Anyway, the Kanye West thing that I think is important is I think he could break identity politics. Because I think a lot of other people, if they start to think for themselves, it breaks identity politics. And if Democrats had to start actually competing with Republicans for black votes, then Democrats wouldn't be able to run a campaign like Hillary Clinton did, where she tried to segment the entire American public and just appeal to everybody's tribal natures as opposed to try to appeal to the larger national discourse. You may not like Barack Obama, but he didn't sell tribalism. He sold American exceptionalism using his rise to prominence as evidence of what could happen in America. Barack Obama was not a tribalist in the sense that he's out there trying to appeal to all these discrete groups. He went out and tried to appeal to everyone. By the time Hillary Clinton ran, she didn't have the charisma of Barack Obama. All she had was the tribal elements of the Democratic Party. I'm going to appeal to gay people. I'm going to appeal to black people. I'm going to argue to women that they should support me because I'm a woman. It was all identity politics, her entire campaign. Donald Trump's campaign, to the extent that he had a defining message, was just Hillary Clinton's full of shit. And so is everything else surrounding Hillary Clinton. And that was an appealing enough message for him to actually win. It's amazing. He ran as, I'm not a pussy, Hillary Clinton is full of shit, and that got him elected president. Finally, Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby's been found guilty of 3 different counts. He's 80 years old. It's just happened about an hour and a half ago. He faces 10 years in prison for every single conviction. I think it's likely that Bill Cosby is going to spend the rest of his life in prison. Unbelievable outcome for Bill Cosby to have gone from America's dad to spending the rest of his life in prison. I would say this. This is a good lesson for everybody out there, okay? Everybody out there should know this. Most public figures have built a persona that is 10 feet tall and a couple of inches deep. And what I mean by that is they sell you a facade. Sometimes the facade represents what they actually are in real life. Many times that facade is completely different than what they represent in real life. And so I think Bill Cosby is another greater, latest example of that. Don't idolize people. Idolize yourself. Kanye West is right about that. You should all be your own biggest fans. Don't look to other people and try to emulate them. Look inside yourself and try to be the best possible person that you can every single day. That's my lesson, boys and girls. I love all of you. DBAP, don't be a pussy. I'm Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. If you enjoyed it, share it with your friends. I'll see you guys tomorrow, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern. We'll be breaking down the NFL draft. Don't smoke pot in a gas mask if you ever hope to get drafted on draft day, #1 overall. Lessons. I am Clay Travis. Thanks for hanging with us here on Outkick the Show.